Now let's talk about another Indian neighbor, and that is Bhutan. It's an important partner for New Delhi, but recently it appears there has been a shift. Bhutan is deepening ties with China. As of today, they don't have a formal diplomatic relationship. Bhutan and China, they don't have a formal relationship, but that's set to change. Beijing wants to normalize ties with Bhutan. As for India, they've been watching from the sidelines so far and watching in concern because Indian interests may be compromised. Will the king's visit change things? He'll land in India tomorrow. He'll spend the next 8 days here. In New Delhi, he'll meet Prime Minister Modi and then embark on a tour of 2 Indian states, Assam and Maharashtra. It's a long visit and an important one. Also, his second visit this year. He came in the month of April too for 3 days. This time, though, the equations are more delicate. The spotlight will be on Bhutan's relationship with China and their border dispute. Last week, Beijing threw a curveball. It hosted Bhutan's foreign minister. This was a first. Like I said, Bhutan and China do not have diplomatic ties. In fact, Bhutan has no formal ties with any of the P5 countries, the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council. They have no missions or ambassadors in Bhutan. That's because the kingdom does not want to get caught in big power politics. So it conducts its business through India. And since there are no formal ties with China, there was no question of a ministerial visit in the past. But now it's happened. Not only did Beijing host Bhutan's foreign minister, they also struck a deal of sorts. Bhutan and China issued a joint statement. They held a round of boundary talks. And this was another first, because the last round of talks happened only 7 years ago. And finally, there was an announcement. China wants to normalize ties with Bhutan, and Bhutan's foreign minister appeared keen. Let me quote from what he said. Both sides have firm determination and a sincere desire to demarcate their boundaries and establish diplomatic relations at an early date. The disputed border is the biggest obstacle, but Bhutan appears eager to finalize a deal. And once that is done, they can normalize ties, which means Bhutan will engage directly with China, and Beijing will have an embassy in Thimpu. Where does that leave India? With a new challenge, the challenge to deal with Chinese presence in Bhutan. And that's just one part of the problem. India's immediate worry are the border talks. Let's go back to that statement from the foreign minister. It spoke about a firm determination to demarcate the boundary. Those are the words he used, a firm determination, meaning their discussions will continue. Bhutan will engage with China and disputed territories will be discussed. This includes Doklam. It's disputed. And from India's point of view, it's strategically critical. So much so that in 2017, India sent troops to defend Doklam. China tried to build a road through the region. India stepped in to stop the construction. For 73 days, there was a standoff between the two militaries, India and China. 73 days. Finally, both sides pulled back. That's how important Doklam is for India. If you look at the map, you'll understand why. Doklam is close to the Siliguri corridor. It is also called the Chicken's Neck. It connects India with its northeastern states. If China controls Doklam, it can cut off India's access to the northeast. So in 2017, India intervened on behalf of Bhutan. But India's own interest was also at play. It wanted to keep China away from the Siliguri corridor. In the process, also protecting Bhutan's territorial integrity. And Indian negotiators were successful. But 6 years later, the situation has changed. Bhutan is talking directly with China and India is not at the table, perhaps not even in the room. In 2021, there was a meeting. Chinese and Bhutanese officials met. They agreed on a 3-step roadmap to resolve the border. In August this year, China and Bhutan held delimitation talks. So they're meeting regularly. But does that mean Bhutan is ignoring India's concerns? Well, not really. Last week, when Bhutan's foreign minister was in China, he was not traveling alone. Reports say Bhutan's ambassador to India was with him. His name is Major General Vetsop Namgyel. Before becoming ambassador, he served in the Royal Bhutan Army, and he's an old India hand. He became ambassador to India way back in 2009. So Bhutan is not ignoring Indian interests. And the king's visit will help. Both sides can exchange notes, they can address concerns vis-a-vis China. But can India get Bhutan to change its mind on the boundary talks? I think that ship has sailed. India's goal now should be to protect its interests, spell out its red lines to Bhutan and monitor China's actions on the border.